ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Thursday Night Football Overtime. Saints, Cardinals, 2-4 football teams looking to scratch and claw their way back towards 500. Big game because no one wants to fall to 2-5 on the season. It's not a death sentence, but it's damn close. It's hard to dig yourself up out of a hole early in the season when you drop to 3 games under 500 with 7 already in the books. You're talking about getting close to the halfway point of the season. You got to start having a sense of urgency. So this is a big game. And the Saints, it was unfortunate. Really both teams had guys injured, but I mean, the Saints were depleted in this game, going into it with a lot of big guys, Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore, especially knowing that, DeAndre Hopkins was coming back and playing in his first game this season. You need Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, we saw how he abused the young fellas out there, and you kind of knew this was the game that he needed to get his feet wet against a couple of young boys out here that he could school. And it would have been tough sledding for him if Marshawn Lattimore would have been waiting for him across the field. It would have been a war, especially for your first game back. So this was exactly what he needed. And he went out and produced. I tweeted out that I had the Cards in this game and that Hopkins makes a difference. And you saw that tonight. Like, their offense is night and day different. There was no A.J. Green. There was no Hollywood Brown. It didn't matter. They had DeAndre Hopkins. And once he's back, you truly have a number 1 wide receiver. Everything else is properly slotted after that. Now Rondale Moore is where he's supposed to be. Now Greg Dortch is where he's supposed to be, and all is right in the world for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I still think they've got some issues. They still have some issues coach-wise. How many times did they have to call timeouts down in the red zone to get plays in? Kyler Murray was in there snapping, and DeAndre Hopkins had to calm them down. There's still some issues, right? Defensively, they're solid. They made some plays tonight, but the Saints scored 34 points tonight. Eddie Dalton had 4 touchdown passes tonight. Understand that this Cardinals defense still gave up a ton of plays. So there's still work to be done with the Arizona Cardinals, but you much rather do that with a win. And that's what they did tonight. All the jokes were free-flowing tonight about the 2 previous games. The funniest thing for me is with the 2 previous games, the Arizona Cardinals by themselves tonight outscored the 4 previous teams that played on Thursday night combined. We got a 12-9 finish in the Broncos and Colts game, and we got a 12-7 finish last week with the Commanders and Bears. So by themselves, the New Orleans Saints eclipsed all 4 of those teams combined. I mean, that's how bad it was the previous 2 weeks. So they said that we were going to have points, this week. We got points in a major way. The 2 teams combined to score 76 points. Wow. I mean, in a league this season that has seen the point production go way down, I'd actually venture to say that this is now the highest scoring game of the season. I could be wrong about that. I know the Eagles and Lions in week 1 played a 36 to 30, 38 to 30 game or something like that, 32 or whatever game, something along those lines. This game still eclipses that, though. I don't think there are any other games that had 2 teams scoring up over 30 points in the same game. Dolphins, Ravens, however, might have this one beat. I think that one ended up being 42 to 38, which would be 80 points total. I think this is the second highest then. I think that's the one, if there's any. That's the one. I don't think there are any others. So a lot of points scored tonight. 2 pick sixes will do that for you. Arizona Cardinals, this game really changed literally in the final 3 minutes of the first half. You go from the Saints up 14-6 to the Cardinals scoring a touchdown, going for a 2 2-point conversion, not getting it, making it 14-12. Okay. Andy Dalton throws his first of 2 consecutive pick sixes. All right, this first one wasn't on him. It's going to be charged to his account, but really this is on Marquez Callaway for not catching the football. Hit him right between his hands, hit off the face mask, caroms into the air, and, Wilson right there, Johnny on the spot, picks it off in stride, never breaks stride, takes off, scores the touchdown. They go for 2 on that touchdown, or actually they kick the extra point. They miss, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember how it went. It was tied at 14. They got the 2-point conversion. It was close. They got the 2-point conversion. It was tied at 14. He missed the extra point to make it 20-14. And then you get the pick 6 thrown. A little bit of pressure on Dalton as he's trying to release the football. It goes to Isaiah Simmons. He has a beautiful, no one really talked about it, but it's a beautiful one-handed stab to deaden the impact, then pick it off. And then he shows you the athleticism that we all saw coming out of Clemson to get that football down the sideline and ultimately into the end zone. And that made it 26. Then they went for 2 again. Zach Ertz tacks on the 2-point conversion, and that made it 28-14. And really the game was never the same after that. You go from up 8 at 14-6 with roughly 2 minutes to go, roughly 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in the first half. You're up 8 to before, at the halftime break. So literally in the span of 2 minutes and a half, you go from up 8 to down 14. That's a 22-point swing of momentum in under 3 minutes of football. Unbelievable how that thing just exploded on the Saints that quickly. And I said if the Cardinals score one more time, just one more touchdown, 35 points, they're going to win the game. And they ultimately did do exactly that in the second half. And so big win for the Cardinals. There was a lot being made of Cliff Kingsbury and the struggles offensively after last week, not being able to muster points on the road against a Seahawks team that had been struggling defensively. And that's an understatement to go in there and struggle the way that they did. Raise some eyebrows. This is a team that a lot of people thought would take the next step after having their first postseason exposure. Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, first time being in the postseason. It was not a good performance by the Cardinals. They looked unprepared. Murray, took exception to being blamed. I don't know who was actually blaming him for anything. They all looked like trash in that game, but it led to some offseason turmoil. I think more of it was due to him wanting a contract, but a lot of that was used as well and saying, we heard trade innuendos, things of that nature. So this was a big year, the contract, and then they kind of bungled that with the whole language in the contract. And so there were a lot of eyes on the Arizona Cardinals coming into the season. They've struggled out of the gate, and you knew they were going to be some residual effect from last year's finish, but more importantly, not having DeAndre Hopkins to start the first 6 games of the season. You knew that was going to impact them. You just didn't know to what extent. We saw 2-4, struggles on offense, inconsistency. You saw it. Now he's back. They score 42 points. I get it. The defense contributed with some major plays. That can't be undersold and that can't be discounted. But this was an offense that was struggling to muster 20 points on a weekly basis. Okay. For them to go out and score, 42 points, 28 of it offensively, that's a big step in the right direction. Huge game for Eno Benjamin. I'm happy for him. A guy that, played at Arizona State, liked him coming out of Arizona State, just lacked the top end speed, but physicality, we saw that tonight, quickness, all of that good stuff he brings to the table. And I thought he looked, spry tonight, breaking tackles, stiff arming guys, getting out in space, good contact balance, 12 carries, 92 yards for Eno Benjamin. He was outstanding in a game where their top 2 backs were injured. He was pressed into service, and I thought he took full advantage of the opportunity that was presented to him. So you get Nuke Hopkins back in the lineup, over 100 yards on 10 catches in his first game back from the suspension. Benjamin almost cracks 100 yards on just 12 carries. It was a well-balanced night. Kyler Murray only threw for, a shade over 200 yards. It's not like he was lighting it up. but they managed the game well, ran the football very effectively. This is a team that has struggled to run the football consistently this season. You add in Murray's, 30, 40, 50, 60 yards, whatever he had in this game, and they were well over that 4-yard per carry threshold that you're looking to achieve. I thought it was a well-balanced attack offensively. They were able to solve some of the red zone woes in this football game. They got into the red zone. They were able to put touchdowns on the scoreboard and not have to settle for a ton of field goals, which was key because I talk about this all the time with teams. One of the easiest ways to decipher a winner versus a loser is without even looking at, all the stats, not even looking at the score. Take me straight to 2 stats in particular, and I'll tell you who won the game. Might not be able to tell you what the score was, but I'll tell you who was victorious. Take me straight to red zone efficiency and turnovers. Those 2 stats right there usually tell the story. 3 turnovers for the New Orleans Saints in this game, 0 for the Arizona Cardinals. Red zone efficiency, let's go look and see what the Cardinals did. I'd venture to say that they were 4-4 in the red zone tonight. Could be wrong about that. They could have been 3 or 4 or something like that. But let's jump into that real quick and see exactly where they were. 3 of 4 for Arizona, 3 of 5 for New Orleans. And remember, that 3 of 5 for New Orleans, 3 of 4 for Arizona, the one that they didn't score, they got a field goal out of, okay? The 2 for the New Orleans Saints, one of them is an interception that took points completely off the scoreboard, right? So understand that if just one of those 3 of 5s, if it's 4 of 5, we're talking about a different ball game. We could be talking about a tie game at 42. We could be talking about a totally different outcome for this football game. So while the Saints were in the red zone quite often, 5 times, which is why I said there's still issues with this Cardinals defense, 3 of them were deposited into the end zone, but one in particular hurts the most because you got 0 points. That was a game changer. Understand the score is 7-3 at the time of that interception that Andy Dalton throws. If he doesn't throw an interception there and they just settle for a field goal and it's 10-3, the game looks completely different. But because he threw that interception, it flipped momentum. The Cardinals were able to cut the deficit to 1 at 7-6. They ultimately go down and score another touchdown and extend the lead out to 14-6 to the Saints. But it's a totally different game if you're up 17-6 at that juncture after the second touchdown instead of 14-6. It just changes everything. Who knows if the Cardinals even score a field goal after after you score a field goal or a touchdown, whatever the case would have been, instead of throwing a pick there. So red zone efficiency, turnovers, you put those numbers together for me, and I usually can tell you who the victor is. It's not hard to see 3 interceptions or 3 turnovers in this game to 0. 2 of those 3 turnovers being deposited directly into the bank account for touchdowns, okay? When you get direct deposits from the defense, usually that is a bad omen for the opposition, and you got 2 direct deposits from this defense into the account of the scoreboard for the Cardinals, and that's a winning recipe right there. So Cardinals get a win for the first time in 9 games at home. I remember when Arizona used to be a tough place to play, and it was like pulling teeth trying to go there to get a win. You go to Arizona on a Sunday afternoon, late window, 4:25 kickoff, and you're like, damn, this is going to be tough. They're going to be loud. It's going to be a bunch of red. It's going to be rough, And I don't know what happened in a short period of time since Cliff Kingsbury has taken over, but all of a sudden it hasn't been that same home field advantage. Teams go there and find ways to win in Arizona. And some of the wins that they've had at home have been, some last second crazy nonsense. The streak could have been longer. You think about a couple of games, one in particular. How about the Hail Murray, right, against Buffalo? I don't know if that was last year. It might have been the year before last, but they've got wins like that at home, So big win for them, no matter what. You snap that streak. I saw another streak that they snapped tonight. The first time they've scored over 40, which this was kind of hard for me to believe, especially with Kyler Murray. Sometimes in my mind, I think I overrate Kyler Murray. I think he's really good. I've said this. There are a lot of flaws in his game. I don't think, I've said this many times, I don't think he's a great leader. I give you a great example tonight. You get the bad snap down in the red zone after they thought they had a touchdown, challenge or the replay overturned what they thought was a touchdown for Ingram, and it brings the ball back out to roughly the 1 yard line. You get a bad snap from Billy Price, the new center, and he hands it off like, hey, hot potato, you take this shit. I'm not getting hit. He gives it to Ingram, and he gets smashed at the 5 yard line. And immediately he's putting his hands up like, what was that? Like, bro, we know it was a bad snap. You don't got to show your center up. Like, we know it wasn't your fault. Like, Kyler Murray don't want to take blame for shit. Okay, it's always somebody else's fault. It's not mine. So, like, you don't need to show your center up. We get it. It was a bad snap. We all saw it. I don't need you to put your hands up and look incredulous like, oh, my God, what is that? What are you doing? He's always showing somebody up. Like, that's not what leaders do. Okay, you can be pissed off. Take that shit to the sideline, and you can air guys out there when the cameras aren't on you. Now, ultimately, 2 plays later, they may show the shot over on the sidelines of you digging in your teammate's ass, but at least it's off on the sidelines. That's where you're supposed to do that. Don't do that shit on the field. But he does that constantly. He showed his coach up tonight. He's cussing his coach out halfway over to the sideline after they had to burn a timeout. I don't know what he was, cussing him out for. I don't know if he couldn't hear the play or they weren't getting it in fast enough or whatever the case may be, but he was pissed about something, and he was giving Cliff Kingsbury work. I'm like, Cliff, don't let this man talk to you like this. And DeAndre Hopkins had to come over there and say, hey, Colin, chill, bro, chill. It's all good. We about to score a touchdown. It's all good. Like, that's not what leaders do. So he's a flawed quarterback, but man, is he talented. But sometimes I think maybe I overrate him. Because they showed a stat that said that the Cardinals have not scored over 40 points in a single game since 2017. Of course, that streak was snapped tonight. It was the longest streak, or drought rather, in the NFL, which, look, you don't have to be a good football team to get lucky and score 40 once. All right. Me being a Commanders fan, I can tell you firsthand, we suck. Right there, there is never a game we go in thinking we're going to put up big numbers and score a bunch of points. We just want to win. And if it's 17-15, which was our number last year, or it's 12-7 like it was last week, we don't really give a shit. Just find a way to get it done. We got lucky against the Cowboys on a Thanksgiving, evening about 2020, so 2 seasons ago now, and things fell right for us in the fourth quarter, and we went off and scored 3 touchdowns in a span of like 4 minutes, and voila, you go from up 20-16 to 41-16, right? You get lucky, and you fall into 40 burger every now and again. For them not to have done it for 5 years, essentially, since 2017, we're in 2022 now, unbelievable. Especially with Kyler Murray, you would have thought that they would have had an explosive offensive day and 1 or 2 turnovers forced by the defense, short fields, touchdowns like you had tonight, whatever the case. And Murray just got it on tilt, 5 touchdown passes, 374 yards and, couldn't miss. You would have thought they would have had one of those days already. But clearly they haven't until tonight. So maybe this is a good get-right game for them. Still, again, obviously still issues with that football team, still issues defensively, still issues, I think offensively a bit. Got to get Robbie Anderson acclimated. But this is a good win for them. You got this pseudo bye now, kind of figure some things out. It's always better when you win these things. And so they're now 3-4 in the season. For the Saints, wow, 2-5. I'm shocked at the start to the season for the Saints. I really, truly am. I knew losing Sean Payton was going to be a very devastating blow, and I knew they weren't going to be the same team, and I wasn't expecting them to be the same team. But not changing any of the personnel in terms of the staff, the coaching staff, keeping everybody pretty much intact. Carmichael as your offensive coordinator and moving your defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, the head coach, and kind of keeping the continuity there. It felt right. It felt like the right thing to do. And you just said, if they can find a way to get some solid play out of the quarterback position, this defense is going to be ridiculous. Well, they gutted the defense. It's no longer the Saints defense that we've come to know and love that would go to Tampa Bay every year, stomp a mud hole in Brady and the Bucks, and we'd look up and say, man, this is a filthy, nasty, disgustingly dirty, New Orleans Saints defense. You want no parts of this. But they've since gotten rid of Marcus Williams, allowed him to leave in free agency. They replaced him with Marcus May. It is not the same. They got rid of what I thought was the heart and soul of that secondary and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I mean, remember the iconic shot of him standing in Brady's face like this? Like, to me, he was the swag of that secondary, along with Marshawn Lattimore. Like, those were the two guys that I felt like were the straw that stirred the drink back there. And for them to just tell this dude, oh, you're not worth it, and trade him to Philadelphia, I thought that was the biggest mistake they made. And think you're going to replace him with a 600-year-old Tyrann Mathieu? Good luck with that. You're going to need it. I thought they made some big mistakes with their defense, thinking they could just plug and play another guy and that DA would figure it out. And this defense is not the same. And some guys are actually playing really well. Like Pete Werner, you saw it tonight, and I've seen it all season. This guy's coming of age right before our very eyes. But it doesn't matter when you've got struggles on the back end and they can't cover anybody. We saw it last week, and I get Marshawn Lattimore is out, but we saw it last week. They couldn't tackle Jamar Chase. And they're continuing to struggle. And even when Lattimore was healthy, they got worked by the Vikings over in London. Like, they've struggled this season. They've struggled defensively. This is not the same defense. Offensively, you knew that there were going to be, some bumps in the road, but you thought if they could just stay healthy, which they haven't. And I told you, Michael Thomas, who is that dude? I don't know that dude. I said the same thing about Christian McCaffrey, and we'll talk more about him, obviously, with the big news of the night, him being traded to the 49ers. But I was like, I don't know these dudes. Who are these guys? They don't play football. Well, McCaffrey's been relatively healthy this year. He's dealing with some stuff, but he's relatively healthy. Thomas, on the other hand, if you blink, you'll miss him. He's in one day, he's gone for 3-4 more weeks the next. If you blink, you saw him in week 1, you're like, oh shit, he's catching touchdowns, and then you blinked again and he's gone. Damn, where did Michael Thomas go? I don't know. So you bring in Jarvis Landry, he's hurt. And so you relied on a rookie and Chris Olave and then a bunch of other guys. And the kid that caught the first touchdown, he's making some plays, man. And the Saints seem to always keep one of these dudes in the chamber, right? Whether it's one of the little small dudes that they've had over the years, small, fast-ass guys that Sean Payton would always have, or now this guy, it's another dude with some speed that, can stretch the football field and make dynamic plays. He had a end around last week for a touchdown against the Bengals. Let me see what this dude's name is. I'm going to have to learn his name because he looks like he's going to be a player. Rashid Shaheed. That's a hell of a name. A nice little tongue twister there. Rashid Shaheed. That's the dude you're going to have to learn his name because he's going to make some plays for them. He looks like he's going to be dynamic in that Tommy Lee Lewis, type role where, just get it to him. He's a playmaker. We'll find ways to get him the football. Saints, however, it's not enough. And at the end of the day, you go back to the core and the crux of the problem. They highlighted it throughout the night. It's the quarterback position. And we all know this. In this league, you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. I can't stress that enough. And the Saints have been spoiled for, the better part of a decade and a half with Drew Brees. They didn't have had to worry about this like the rest of the league, or a lot of teams in the league, rather. You were secure at that position, and you knew if we could just find a way to play some solid defense and stay relatively healthy, Drew's going to take us to 11 wins, and we're going to be right there in the mix when it's all said and done. Now you're playing quarterback musical chairs. You thought maybe if Jameis could stay healthy, he could be something because he was solid for you before he got injured last year. He hasn't been able to stay healthy this year. Andy Dalton is a solid NFL backup at this point of his career, but he doesn't win games. Like, we've seen that in his last 3 stops. Dallas, we thought, oh, man, damn, Dak got hurt, but shit, that's the luxury to have Andy Dalton coming in. And Andy just came in and won the first game against the Giants, and then, then went on to lose a bunch of football games. Didn't play well, got injured, came back after getting injured. Won a couple of games late, but he was funky in Dallas. Went to Chicago, and again, one of those situations, if you blinked, he was in and out of the lineup, and then Justin Fields was in there. So, Andy is what he is at this point of his career. You're not going to win a lot of football games with Andy Dalton. And just when you think it's safe, just when you thought it was safe, oh, shit, here comes Andy managing the game, not turning it over, giving us a chance. He explodes for 3 interceptions. And again, not every one of those interceptions was his fault. All right. The first one was definitely his fault. The second one, not so much. The third one, it's debatable. He got hit as he was throwing it. He probably bears some of the blame there. Either way, 3 picks. You're not going to win very many games. 2 of them going to the crib. You're not going to win any games like that. So, the narrative on him was he's going to take care of the football. If he's going to do that shit, you might as well put Jameis Winston back in the game, right? So you're in between a rock and a hard place because you don't have the most important position locked in. Your defense is not what it once was. You were relying on this defense to be lights out, holding opponents under, 23 points a game, right around 20, less than 20 if at all possible. You wanted to be in that 18.7 point range, and that would give your offense a chance to just do the little things, not have to go out here and outscore opponents like tonight, needing to score 43 to win. Nah, just give us a chance to win this game 23 to 20. Give us a chance to win this thing 24 to 19. Your defense isn't doing that. You're having to score offensively, and this offense is not built, with the quarterback position being what it is, it's not built to be able to outpoint teams and get into shootouts and win. So the more these shootouts you find yourself getting in, the more you find yourself stinking on the ground, wet, with a bunch of holes, bullet holes, because you're not winning any shootouts. And you were left stinking in London. You come home, you got wet up again by the Bengals, and now you're getting wet up again here by the Arizona Cardinals. So this is a defense that's been very, very disappointing, to say the least, and the offense hasn't done its part enough. Of late, the offense has actually been good. The defense has been terrible. That's been the biggest issue, but got to score in the red zone. Didn't do it last week against Cincinnati. Again, I told you, go straight to that red zone efficiency and turnover number, and usually that tells the story. You weren't efficient in the red zone. You lost the football game last week. You were more efficient this week, but not as efficient as you would like to be. But the 3 turnovers, they tell the story this week. So Saints are now 2-5. I thought they were going to be the team to really compete with Tampa Bay in that division. And it's crazy because if I would have told you before the season started, after 6 weeks of football, the Buccaneers would be 3-3, you would probably say, well, shit, we leading the division then. We leading the division. At worst, we're tied with them. But if you're telling me Brady and company are starting 3-3, oh, we 4-2, we lead the division. You're 2-5, and you're not even close. You're closer to Carolina at the very bottom. They're selling off parts. We're about to get into that in a little bit, but they're selling off parts in Carolina. You're much closer to them than you are the Falcons and the Bucks. Didn't think I'd be talking about the Saints in that capacity. When you traded away the first round pick in next year's draft to the Eagles, you were thinking, we don't give a shit. That's going to be in the 20s anyway. We plan on making the playoffs. We're going to be a good football team next year. That'll be the 25th pick in the draft anyway. That might end up being a top 10 pick with the way y'all going right now. It's crazy. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys have to say. Video channel. Remember, if you're out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. Super chats come first. If you want to ensure that your comment is read, super chats are the way to go about that. And so let's get to our first super chat of the night from Video Channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video Channel writes, Lou, much more interesting game than the last two Thursday games, but you see CMC to the 49ers. I did. I knew it wasn't going to be long before someone got to that. I was going to leave that for you guys, but since you brought it up, yes, massive trade. We knew this was coming. We heard as soon as they fired Matt Rule that it was going to be a fire sale and that they were going to try, because their owner is impatient. I've talked about this already. When you get an impatient owner, you get, to me, irrational decisions. I don't think trading away Christian McCaffrey is irrational. Let's see how far they go, because Robbie Anderson, disgruntled, wanted out. They moved him. Okay, fine. Robbie Anderson was about to become a cancer in that locker room. So I think they did the right thing there. All right. And I like Robbie Anderson. Christian McCaffrey, you could argue you overspent for him. But at the time when you gave him the contract, the man was the most dynamic running back in all of football, fantasy football darling, a touchdown machine, yards, out of the backfield as a receiver are equally as dangerous as him handing it to him as a runner. All of that stuff was legit. He might have been the best back in football. There was a discussion there to be had about Christian McCaffrey and where he ranked. And a lot of people would have put him at number one when he got that deal. He hasn't been right since, with all the injuries, things of that nature. And so to get from under that contract, to move him, pick up some draft capital, we don't know the compensation right now. I would assume that it's got to be no less than a third. I'm thinking probably a second round pick for Christian McCaffrey's services, but we'll see ultimately what they got in exchange. But they want a quarterback. David Tepper's sick and tired of waiting, sick and tired of, rolling the dice with Sam Darnold or trading for somebody else's table scraps from 2018's draft in the first round. He's sick of doing that. No more Baker Mayfield, no more Sam Darnold. He wants enough draft capital that if he's not the number one pick, he can get as high as he can get. Because again, if you end up with the third pick and the number one team needs a quarterback, it doesn't matter what you're offering them. They're not giving up a chance to get what they view to be a franchise quarterback. But let's say they finish with the sixth pick in the draft, do the Panthers. And in order to get a quarterback in this draft, you need to get up to number two. They want to have as much draft capital as necessary to put themselves in a position, no matter what, we will make you an offer you cannot refuse. We need to get our quarterback. I'm sick and tired of doing this song and dance. So they're about to start selling off pieces. And McCaffrey was probably the biggest commodity that they had available. Now, if they decide they want to give up Brian Burns, that's going to be another commodity. He might cost you more than Christian McCaffrey. They still got some stuff there that's, to me, you're going too far, though. If you start, auctioning off pieces like Brian Burns and some of these other guys that are super talented, like Shaq Thompson, like if you start and DJ Moore, who just got a contract, I don't think you can even trade him because he just got that contract. But you start auctioning off some of the guys that should be cornerstone pieces for your football team moving forward, I think now you have a problem. Don't overdo it. I think your best commodity that you were looking to give away was Christian McCaffrey. You got that done. You moved Robbie Anderson. If you want to move a couple more pieces, be my guest. But just make sure you're selective in the guys you decide to move on from. But what do I think this trade means for the 49ers? Because, again, for the Panthers, they're just looking to try to stockpile as much draft capital as possible. For the 49ers, I'm still in limbo as to what that will mean for them, because obviously Jeff Wilson isn't, Christian McCaffrey, but I didn't think he wasn't running terrible, right? He did have a big fumble against the Falcons last week, but he's running football hard, and when there's holes there, he's exploiting them. He's not the pass catcher that McCaffrey is out of the backfield, but I don't know exactly what this does. I know Shanahan, through the years, going back to his dad, they've always been able to take no matter who you put back there and make them a credible threat out of the backfield. Whether it's Olandis Gary or Ryan Terrain, they've done it for years. All right. So I had no doubt, Tatum Bell, they've done it for years. So whether it's Jeff Wilson or Elijah Mitchell, I'm just thinking they'll be fine. Just put a guy back there, okay? Raheem Mostert, all these guys that they had up and through there at the running back position, just stick somebody in there. You'll be fine. I don't know if Christian McCaffrey makes the world of difference. You still have Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. To me, at the end of the day, that's where you end up, is you still got Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's a big piece. I think McCaffrey would have been a much better piece for a team like the Rams, who don't have anything at running back right now. Cam Akers, they want to trade him, and they're getting nothing out of that position at all whatsoever. And a dominant back could change everything for the Los Angeles Rams. Whereas with the 49ers, they're getting production out of their running back position. So I don't know. We'll see. He's still Christian McCaffrey. And so I think where he will help the 49ers the most is as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Because they weren't getting that out of Jeff Wilson. Okay. They've missed that element out of the backfield. And that's why you have Kyle Juszczyk, but he's not Christian McCaffrey, obviously. So we'll see. Jury's still out. I want to see what they gave up. And then he's got to stay healthy. He still hasn't been, 100% healthy. He's dealing with some stuff. I know just a couple of weeks ago, there was a question as to whether he would play and did he practice during the course of the week. And so he's still a guy that you got to be wary of from an injury standpoint. I'd like to think the 49ers were smart enough to put in the writing that, hey, this is going to be what you get in terms of draft compensation will be dependent upon how many games and snaps we get out of this dude. If the remainder of the season, since he's in from week 7 on, if this guy plays 70% of the snaps, then you'll get your second round pick. If he doesn't, it's a third round pick. I would think that this has to be a conditional too, because Christian McCaffrey could come there and 2 weeks after getting their hamstring, and you don't see him for the next 5 weeks. So big trade. What impact will it have? I think it would have impacted another NFC West team greater than the 49ers. If he goes to the Rams, I think it changes everything for their offense. I'm not so sure that it's going to change everything for this 49ers offense. It'll make it more dynamic. He's another playmaker. It's not just Deebo Samuel and George Kittle anymore. And I don't want to disrespect Brandon Ayuk. He's becoming a big-time playmaker for them as well. You just add another playmaker to the mix, a guy that you can flex out. And Kyle will get the most out of him. He'll use him as a receiver. He'll do some creative things with him. But I still want to see the true value in this deal. And we'll see if Kyle can get it done or not. JP, my guy, John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. So JP writes, Panthers just traded Christian McCaffrey. They're getting a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick this year and a 5th next year. So I knew it was going to be good compensation. I did not think it would be that much. But again, one of the things we get wrong as fans is trade compensation for players. We never get this shit right. We are always way off. We think we know. We have no idea what it's going to take to get a guy. I think that's a little bit excessive. I mean, I'm just looking at this deal, and it reminds me of the Tyreek Hill deal that the Chiefs got in exchange for him, where they got a boatload of picks. You rarely see that happen for a wide receiver or a skill guy. To see the Panthers get a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th next year, I mean, you're taking away the meat and potatoes of your draft. Rounds 2 through 4, but you can even add in the 5th round. That's where you build your roster. That's where roster building takes place. In those core rounds of 2 through 5, you're getting players that are not only going to be key contributors on either offense or defense, you're also getting core special teamers in that mix as well. And you're taking away rounds 2 through 4 and a 5th the following year for a guy that you're not even sure is going to be able to stay healthy. I think the Panthers made out like bandits, to be honest with you. Being in the situation that they're in, I was looking at a conditional 2 and maybe like a 4 in 2024. But if what JP is saying is true, a 2, a 3, or 4 next year, and then a 5 in 2024, wow, that's a hell of a haul. Let's see. Niners fan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Niners fan writes, let's go now. Win now, like the Rams did a year ago. Love it. I love pushing your chip, because I think this isn't just for this year, but understanding what Jimmy Garoppolo was able to do with this team last year, I think they feel like, well, why can't we do that again this year? Now, this is a different year. The league is different. Everything's different. You got injuries already. Bosa's out. Emmanuel Mosley's done for the season. You've got injuries already. So it's not going to be as easy, but that division is wide open. And I think that's why they rolled the dice. They look up and they say, 3-3 is leading the division. We're 3-3. The Rams are 3-3. The Seahawks are 3-3. And now the Cardinals are 3-4. This division is there for the taking. So why not strike while the iron's hot? Let's go make a move and try to position ourselves to not only win this division, get a home playoff game. Look, the NFC is trash. I've talked about it last night on the Super Friends stream. I've talked about it on the podcast. I've talked about it on the Washington shows with the fan base. The NFC is wide ass open. Anybody can win the NFC this year. I don't know if you can beat the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs if you make it that far, but you can make it to the NFC Championship game. Who's stopping you? Right now, the Bucks stink. The Packers trying to figure some shit out, and the Rams stink. Like, teams are struggling right now. The teams that we thought were going to be at the forefront of the conference, not there. And when you look around at the NFC, if Minnesota and the Giants at 5-1 apiece are the best that this conference has to offer, along with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think I want to separate the Eagles from the Giants and the Vikings right now. If the Giants and the Vikings are the second best teams in the conference record-wise, that speaks volumes, because no one's afraid of the Vikings. No one's afraid of the Giants. And again, you don't have to be afraid to get your ass beat. I've already talked about being fearful is not a prerequisite to getting your brains bashed in. So it doesn't matter that you're not afraid of them. But again, it's not like saying, damn, we got to play Buffalo, or damn, we got to play Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. You're like, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, we can do that. Daniel Jones and the Giants, we can do that. Hell, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, they're playing really well, though. We can figure it out. We can try to manage that. So the NFC East right now is leading the way. You got 6-0, 5-1, 4-2. After that, look around the rest of the conference. The Vikings at 5-1. Everybody in the NFC West is 3-3 or worse. And then in the North, in the South, it's a mess. It's similar to the NFC West. You got 2 3-3 teams, and the rest of the division is trash, including these Saints who we saw tonight drop to 2-5, and the Panthers who are waving the white flag as we speak at 1-5. The NFC is wide open, so the 49ers are saying, hey, why not us? I'm not mad at it. I'm not glad at it because of what you gave up for a guy that if you could give me a crystal ball and I can look into the future and you can tell me, hey, Christian McCaffrey is going to play every single game remaining this season for the 49ers. Okay, then I may be able to say, all right, maybe what you gave up isn't too steep of a price. Maybe. Still feel like it's a lot. It's a hell of a haul. But you can't. I can't look in the crystal ball. I can't predict the future. And the likelihood is he's not going to play in every single game for you. But we'll see. All right. So that's the last super chat. Now let's get to the comment section. Gregory Lightbody writes, Washington should have drafted Olave over Dotson. That's hindsight. I don't subscribe to that. The kid's been banged up. It happens. That wasn't part of the DNA when we got him from Penn State. He didn't miss a ton of football games in college. And so it is what it is. Olave's missed one game, but he's been super productive when he has played. We knew he was good. John Dotson is good. So I got no complaints and I got no buyer's remorse. Hopefully he gets healthy here sooner rather than later and gets back in the lineup and he can show what he can do. But you can't go back and, try to change history. It is what it is. We got a good football player. It's not like, choosing Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. That's not what we just did. So Gregory Lightbody also writes, I think most people were expecting Wilson to be the best receiver in his draft class, but so far it looks like Olave. I already told you guys I liked Olave better than Wilson, but I think Wilson has, some dynamic traits. But if you wanted the more polished, the one knock on Olave was supposed to be his speed. And then when he lit it up at the combine, that was it for me. I'm like, the dude is as clean a route runner as you can find in the draft. He's as polished a receiver as you will find. Huge production at Ohio State, big numbers, tons of catches. The only question was, could he really run? Did he have straight line speed? He's proven that already. It was the same shit we said about Justin Jefferson. The numbers were there at LSU. If only question was, can Justin Jefferson really run? He played a lot of slot. Is he really fast, or is he just a technician? He answered that when he ran his 40 at the combine, or I think it was a pro day that year. I didn't think we had a combine, but he answered the question. We're like, okay, shit, he can run. Justin Jefferson can run. All right, make it happen. Man had like 115 catches the year they won the national championship when he got drafted. Like, what are we talking about? I don't even know how he fell as far as he did. And it's easy to say that now looking back, but it's the same thing with Olave. I looked at him in the same light as Justin Jefferson. So I'm not shocked that he's doing what he's doing, which is why I wanted Washington to draft him. But again, I'm cool with Jahan Dotson. Just got to stay healthy. Easier said than done. Young Dex writes, do you think it was wise of the Saints to sign May and Matthew instead of keeping Marcus Williams and Gardner Johnson? Absolutely not. That was the dumbest thing they could have done. And look, I get it. From a financial standpoint, you can't re-sign everybody. It's the toughest thing to do, especially when you got a really gritty defense like you've had for the last 3-4 years. Everybody's looking to get paid, man, and you can't pay everybody. You paid Cameron, Jordan, and you paid Davenport, and you paid Marshawn Lattimore. Somebody's got to get shaved off. Somebody's got to get slighted. Everybody can't get bread. I thought Marcus Williams was the one you could afford to let go. Loved what he was doing back there, patrolling everything, ball hawk, all that good stuff. But I thought you could let him go and replace him with Marcus May, and you would be fine, but you needed to keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's where you really went wrong. When you decided to squabble over a couple of pennies and a couple of nickels with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, that's where you went downhill because, again, it wasn't just about, it's a safety, we can swap him out. It was about what he meant to that football team. He was high intensity. He was a heady football player, super smart, playmaker, physical, tough. I thought he brought an edge to that secondary. The only other guy that I felt like matched his intensity was Marshawn Lattimore. Those dudes play with an edge and a chip on their shoulder. Like, when you talk about the swag the Saints had defensively to go into Tampa Bay and do what you used to do to them every year, it was because of dudes like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Marshawn Lattimore. They brought that edge. You lost that. You don't have that edge in that secondary anymore. And again, those are young football players. You swapped out young dudes for older guys. Now, Marcus May is not an older guy. He's right in that same age range with Marcus Williams and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But Tyrann Mathieu, I don't have to explain to you that there's a big age discrepancy there. I thought you should have kept, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. CGJ should have been still in New Orleans. You could have allowed Marcus Williams to get that big payday he got from the Ravens. That's fine. And got Marcus May on the cheap. But you needed to keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and that's where you went wrong. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one is from Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I got Ayuk and CMC on my fantasy, and I'm playing a dude with Debo this week. I don't know anymore. He says, also, good job not blowing it to the Knicks. Ja agenda. Yeah, we tried our hardest to lose that ball game, man. I was so disappointed that thing even went to overtime. We had several occasions where we could have put the game away. Then, my guy steps to the line, misses 2 free throws, so it stays a 3-point game, and then we give up a great look to tie the game to their best 3-point shooter. We let and this is my guy. He went to Duke, and I was expecting so much more out of him, but we let Cam Reddish go off on us off the bench. Like, it was a disappointing effort, but it was fun to watch guys get off, like Santi Aldama and Aldama go off the way that he did, and all of that work he put in the summer league paying off. It's fun to watch, but I don't want to go down that road. I'll just say that it's going to be interesting to see what kind of an impact CMC has on that 49ers offense. I'll just say that, because we know what the Shanahans can do with a mid back. Just give them anybody. They'll turn them loose. You get Trent Williams back and you stick CMC back there, and it could change some things. It could get real ugly real fast. So we'll see. They can really take this and finesse this into something big, but it could also backfire in their face. It's a steep price to pay. It's a steep price to pay for a guy that hasn't played a lot of football over the last 2 seasons. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I digress. I think that's the last comment. No. That was a super chat. We got more comments. We got more hashtags to jump on. I've seen one just now right here from Rich. Rich writes, the NFC is now praying that Trey Lance sucks now, or the 49ers will be very, very good for a very, very long time. Even Jimmy G can win the Super Bowl now with this roster. They needed to pray that he wasn't good anyway, because if he is any good with Kyle Shanahan, he's going to be a problem, because that's the kind of quarterback that fits that system to a T, which is why I thought they would draft him over Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones! But I don't know about the very, very, very long time thing, like because of adding Christian McCaffrey. Again, the shelf life on these running backs, not all that great. And you see what he's been dealing with throughout his career already. I don't know how much, he's going to be able to give you 2-3 years down the road, but in the short term, it's a great move. And again, in an NFC that is wide ass open, it's not a bad move if he stays healthy. It's not a bad move that could reap the 49ers tons of benefit. But again, you're rolling the dice on a dude that hasn't played in a ton of football games in each of the last 2 seasons. Missed a lot of football. And has already dealt with some nagging injuries this year that he hasn't missed any games for. But, we've had to talk about, is he practicing? Is he going to play? We'll see. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. All right. Kevin, the PRF, writes, it's not steep when you consider the 49ers like to act fast while that Jimmy Garoppolo window is still open. I can tell you this much. I think they did it because they know if Trey Lance is the quarterback this year, more likely than not, they're not in contention for anything meaningful. Like, this would have been a learning year for him. There would have been growing pains. I don't know if they would have felt like they had a chance. I think Shanahan feels like, I got a shot this year with Garoppolo for one more year. This is it for Garoppolo. After this, it's got to be the Trey Lance show. And so I got an opportunity to go after it, go all in right now. I'm going to take it. The NFC was much tougher last year, and we made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. It's nowhere near as tough this year. And while we haven't gotten off to the start and that we wanted to, and the injuries are, starting to mount, we're still a good football team, and the rest of this conference isn't all that great. Our division isn't all that great. So why not win the division Get a home playoff game, and let's just see what happens from there. Not bad logic, but we'll see how it plays out on the football field. Let's see. Sports Talker 69 writes, how many wins now from Washington? You said 12 at the start of the year. I don't know. I really don't know how many wins. I think right now the number for me is somewhere in that 8 range. I think 8 is the number right now, if I had to guess. But who knows what's going to happen? Still a lot of football left to be played. Don't know, how this team's going to respond to Taylor Heineke getting an opportunity. This defense is coming alive. Is it legit, or was it just the level of competition that they've been playing over the last 2 weeks or so? 3 weeks, if you want to go back to the Cowboys, they've really played well defensively in that game too. All right, let's see what you got now. Like, Rodgers and company are struggling, but they're fully capable of putting up, 27. Are you capable of stopping them from doing that and giving your offense a chance to win? We'll see. Right now, I'd say that number is right around 8. 7, 8, 9 on the high side. But 3 weeks from now, Washington could be winners of 4 straight. Ron is good for his 4-game winning streak, and we could be above 500. And I could be telling you, hey, 12 is still on the table. Technically, it would be, but it's not going to happen, right? But I could be telling you 12 is still on the table. So we'll see what happens. Abel Ambrosio writes, what is your record prediction for the Grizzlies, and are you announcing the winner of the Green Bay game tomorrow? You talking about my prediction for the game? Yeah, the prediction for the game is tomorrow. If you're talking about the tickets, the giveaway, I did that tonight already. So just go check out that video and you'll know who won the tickets. My Grizzlies, it's hard to predict because no Jaren Jackson Jr. for the first. I don't think he's coming back until probably post All-Star game. So you're talking about February, right? That's steep, man. For your second best player to be out for pretty much the first half of the season, that's rough. Now, we're one of the deepest teams in the league. We got a ton of young talent. I love how, like I just said, Santi Aldama stepped in, gave us, damn near 20 last night and shot it well from behind the arc. If we can get him to do that, and I know he's fully capable, then we may be able to survive, But we got a lot of young boys we're counting on. I'm still lukewarm on David Roddy and that selection. I think I'm really going to like Jake LaRavia, but I don't know about that David Roddy pick yet. He hasn't sold me yet. Didn't love what I saw in the Summer League. Didn't love what I saw last night. Haven't been, overly impressed with him. I think they were hoping he would be more like a Draymond Green type. I just don't see it. So, and he hasn't been shot at over 40% at Colorado State. I haven't seen it in Summer League or in the NBA to this point. LaRavia can shoot. So I saw it yesterday. He didn't shoot many times. He's going to pick his spots, but I think we can match last year's win total. But I'm looking to exceed that. I'm not looking to match it. I'm looking to exceed it. So we'll see what we can do. Dan Snyder, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of this MOBB, who writes, don't F with me, Lou. I got dirt on you. Sure, guy. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. We left off right here. Joe Rockhead J. Thank you for the super chat. Or Joe Rockhead J writes, it feels like all of these mediocre teams, Commanders, look less capable of taking advantage of it. Look, part of the reason why I haven't pronounced the season dead, and, beating the Bears went a long way in not pronouncing the season dead. But Part of the reason that I didn't pronounce it dead is because I went through this exercise with you guys. The conference is wide open. All right. Now, anything could happen. But in order for us to be in a position to take advantage of anything going on, we got to get some semblance of quality quarterback play. And I don't really care who it comes from, but we can't have that up and down, inconsistent, don't know what you're going to get today or next week type of deal. You can't have the, oh man, Heineke was unconscious like he was against the Giants, and then you turn around the following week and get the Saints performance. You can't have him playing like he did against the Giants or the Falcons, and then turn around and then you get one of the Chiefs performances or the Broncos game. We're not going to be able to do anything doing that. We need consistency. So we'll see. I don't see us taking advantage of anything right now. We got to start winning games. We haven't even put together a win streak yet. Can't start a streak without one. We got one. Now you got to get to two. See if we can do that. Metaphor. Who won the tickets? Am I not qualified? Still telling you, Carson, back in Philly. Go check out the video. Go check out the video. All right. Kyle Little. Think the 49ers traded for CMC just so the Rams couldn't get him. It's possible. I mean, teams do, play those kind of games, but it's not like Washington, and Joe Gibbs giving up a second-round pick for TJ Duckett so that the Philadelphia Eagles can't get their hands on him. Like, that was dumb because TJ Duckett was TJ Duckett. We're talking about Christian McCaffrey here. And if you're going to try to block a team from getting a player, you don't do it by surrendering a second, third, fourth, and then a fifth the following year in the draft. That's not out of spite. You're doing this because you think this guy can help potentially push your football team over the top and help you win a chip. If you're giving up that kind of draft compensation for a non-quarterback, then what you're saying is this dude has the ability to change football games and outcomes of football games. So, yeah, while they might have been trying to block, and I don't know if, what they gave up is indicative of them having to outbid the Rams, because, the Rams don't give a shit about draft picks. Rams don't even have a first-round pick till 2047, and they're like, yo, you can have 2048, 9, and 50 if you give us McCaffrey. But I want picks now. I don't want to be talking about, this ain't the NBA where you stashing picks 8 years down the road and you're like, oh shit, how we got a first round pick? Oh, that was from a trade back in 2017. Oh, damn. Okay, cool. Like that's not how it works in the NFL. I want my shit now. Okay. I want to reap the benefits of moving a guy right now. So they may have been trying to block him from going to the Rams, but they also feel like this guy can help them, and that's what the compensation says. And it could also say, hey, we had to outbid the Rams, but the Rams don't have that much draft capital to give up. So anyway, I digress. Metaphor says, scooch over. My Yankees about to join your Braves on the couch. Hey, y'all ain't got nothing for the Astros. Bad Dog told you that yesterday. We ain't got nothing. He said, man, we don't have nothing for the Astros. And he's been saying that all year long. He's been saying that the Astros own the Yankees. So I'm not surprised, but I'm rooting for Dusty Baker. So I hope they get it done this year. If it wasn't going to be my Braves, I wanted it to be the Astros because Dusty, he's got to get one, before it's all said and done. All right. Rich says, do you think I should pick up Santi on my fantasy basketball team or any other sleepers on the Grizz? Santi would be the only sleeper. Everybody else is, that's going to get serious, significant minutes are known commodities. And Jake LaRavia is another guy, but he's not going to shoot the basketball enough for you to benefit from him being on a fantasy team. But Santi Aldama is going to get opportunities. I just told you Jaren Jackson Jr. had foot surgery in the offseason. We're not going to see him, I don't think, until next year. I might be a little bit off by saying, post All-Star break. I think what this organization has shown in the past with injuries is that they're going to take their time, especially when it's one of their star players. They're not going to rush him back. They didn't rush back Dylan Brooks last year. They didn't rush back Ja last year. They didn't rush him back in the playoffs. They didn't rush back Jaren Jackson Jr. 2 years ago. That's not how they operate. So I think he's going to be out for a considerable amount of time. And I think in the meantime, Santi Aldama is going to be the biggest beneficiary of that. And if game one is any indication of what he's capable of, then yeah, he's a guy that you should be looking at for your fantasy team. David Roddy and Jake LaRavia are the only other two young guys that no one really knows about that are going to get potentially significant minutes. But again, I don't know and trust David Roddy, and LaRavia is just not aggressive enough. He's not really looking for his shot. So, Red Wings writes, be glad you got a team with hope. As a Zards fan, I'm living vicariously through the Clippers, and they win tonight's Battle of LA. Great game, too. I heard Kawhi came off the bench. I didn't watch a second of it, but I heard they're trying to work Kawhi back in minutes-wise, and they're doing it by bringing him off the bench. I don't really know if the Battle of LA even exists anymore because the Lakers suck. I wouldn't be shocked if they don't make the playoffs this year. They're already 0-2. And at some point, Street Clothes is going to get injured again. And I could see some real dysfunction happening with Westbrook. And I could see him butting heads with Patrick Beverly. That team's going to implode. LeBron's just hanging on for dear life, trying to wait for his son, Bronny, to come up. But the Clippers are the far superior team. They're a legitimate, NBA championship contender, whereas the Lakers are a joke. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Aiden Hutchinson, 0 sacks before us and 0 sacks after. And I told y'all in the moment, right after that game was over, I said not a single one of his sacks was a dominant, oh my God, he just whooped our tackle's ass sack. They were all hustle sacks, quarterback holding on to the ball too long type of sacks. That none of them were dominant, oh my God, can't believe this guy just beat our tackle. Like when Trayvon Walker beat Sam Cosmi in week 1, that was like, shit, okay. I mean, what you want me to do? He beat him off the snap, quick first step, bent the corner, dipped the shoulder. I mean, it wasn't shit Sam could do. He just got beat, time to snap up everything. None of Aiden Hutchinson's sacks looked like that. And I think he got banged up in that game too against us. I don't know to what extent, but I remember he was in and out of the lineup that game. But hey, look, he's going to be a good football player. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not shocked that he hasn't had any sacks since that game. I'm not. Let's see. Abel writes, hopefully we can give the Eagles their first loss like we did versus the Steelers back in 2020. That's my hope. That's why I said I hope they're – I say that tongue-in-cheek, though. I don't want them to be undefeated when we get to them. I want them to lose. I want them to lose every game. Same with Dallas and the Giants. I don't want them winning shit. But if somebody is to knock them off, if they still playing good football, and we've looked at the schedule, we know that their schedule is only going to get softer. If they're still undefeated by the time they get to us, I would love to do the honors. I would love nothing more than to go in their house like we did the Steelers, like you said. And that was on a Monday night, if you recall, back in 2020. I would love to go in there and do the honors. Nothing would be sweeter than to go in there and spoil it on their home turf. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Joe Rockhead J writes, 1 win, 1 win. You're lucky if you have just 1 win. Zards. Look, we know how it goes in the NBA. If you're going to try to win something of note, you got to have, at a bare minimum, a top 10 player in the league, and then you have to have another dude that's top, I would say your next guy probably needs to be in the top 30, which we don't have technically in Memphis. Because Jaren Jackson Jr. is really good, but he's not a top 30 NBA player. He's more like a top 50 NBA player. But where we make up the difference there is with the depth that we have. Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones is one of the best backup point guards in the league, and Steven Adams cleaning the glass, altering shots. Everybody else does. Dylan Brooks, supreme defender. We know all of those things he brings to the table. We come at you in waves with so many different guys. John Conchar is starting. He started last night for Dylan Brooks and gave us quality minutes. He always does when he plays. Y'all don't have that. It's like y'all experimenting in Washington, right? Like the trade for the unicorn for Porzingis, like, don't even know how that works, how that even fits. We're going to see, I guess, right? It's a lot of moving parts. I didn't love the draft pick last year of the kid out of Wisconsin, Johnny Davis, but, I mean, I felt like there were other options available to you, but you needed a point guard. I'm not in favor of reaching for a guy. And I'm not saying that was a total reach, but he wasn't a difference maker. If I'm drafting where you guys are drafting, I need a difference maker. Unless you're at a point where you're shopping for specific pieces because your team is set and this is what you need specifically, then you need to be getting the most talent, the highest ceiling basketball player, period. Not selecting for a position, which is what you did. But again, I digress. Let's see. Kevin the PRF says, any Chase updates? How long till a Target game? So yeah, it's not much of an update. Well, we heard this already, but Chase is meeting with Dr. Andrews on Sunday. So after the game against the Packers, he'll be meeting with Dr. Andrews, either before the game or after, because it's a home game. So at some point, he'll meet with Dr. Andrews. They'll examine the knee structurally, how it looks, everything is intact. And then they'll go from there as far as, where they feel like he should be able to make his debut. Now, if the prognosis from the meeting is good, then the plan is to get him back on the practice field this week or next week on Wednesday, similar to the way they did it with Brian Robinson. He'd practice the entire week. They need to see him respond each day from practice well. And then Saturday, they would activate him, and he would be traveling on the road with them to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. If they feel like, hey, you're in a great spot, just give me one more week, then he'll miss the Colts game. I've been saying week 9 was the target date all along. That was what I was saying. It could be week 8 against Indy on the road. But I was saying week 9, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings come to town. That's when he'll make his debut. It'll be no later than that. If everything goes well, it'll be no later than week 9. Right now, there's a chance it's week 8. I'd say 40% chance week 8, 60% chance it's week 9 versus Minnesota right now. But don't discount that Chase wants to get on the field. And if they give him the green light, he'll be ready to go week 8. So we'll see what happens. Commando Liberty, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I heard March is when the owners will vote. So the league meetings during the season aren't to make any wholesale changes. They're not doing that in season. Okay. They're just trying to, make sure the health of the league is where it needs to be. If any important things come up, they take care of it. But it's a lot of what they're discussing now are issues that they're going to set up for the offseason. So they may talk about some subtle rule changes, but that stuff is things that they'll vote on in the offseason. I don't think there's going to be a vote on Daniel Snyder, personally. I don't think there's going to be a vote. So I don't think they have enough. I think there are a lot of owners that want him gone, but I don't think there's 24 of them. And they're not going to take it to vote unless they've got enough. Like, they're not going to just throw it out there and it ends up only being 15 guys, other owners that want him out. I think people underestimate how much power and sway Jerry Jones has over the entire league and the rest of the owners. He's the most powerful owner, along with Robert Kraft. Those are the two most powerful owners in all of football right now. And so I think it was Ian Rappaport that put out a tweet that said, Jerry Jones is still backing Daniel Snyder. And as long as that doesn't change, nothing's going to change. I think that's pretty accurate. As long as Jerry's like, hey, he's fine by me, I don't think he's going anywhere. The minute that Jerry, and that's why I thought the ESPN article was interesting, because that article kind of painted a picture of Jerry Jones starting to shift away from, Daniel Snyder and saying, hey, bro, I don't know if I can save you anymore. You kind of going out towards the deep end. That's a little bit, you're getting outside of my jurisdiction a bit. I was trying to protect you, but the further you go out into the wilderness, I can't help you. Jerry's like, I don't know where they got that shit from. That ain't what I've said. Jerry ain't one to mix words. If Jerry had a problem with him, he would have been like, hey, man, it might be time for a change. That's not what Jerry said. So I don't think you're going to see any votes. I don't think anything's going to happen, but you never know. Donald Gray, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, what's Scott Turner's game status? Is he still hurt? Oh, no, he's not even on the injury report. You're going to get you plenty of Scott Turner, man. Remember, that man's fresh off of an extension. He's feeling damn good about himself. So not on the injury report at all. Let's see. Red Wings writes, I've been meaning to ask this for a while. Why did Gibbs 2.0 fail? Did the game leave him behind? Was he not able to run his offense without the Hogs' poor quarterback play? I think Gibbs 2.0, first of all, I wouldn't call it a failure. He went to the playoffs twice in 4 years. No other coach has done that. And I really, truly believe that had he stuck around for that fifth year, and it was just too much. Deshaun Taylor death, it was just too much for him. Joe was like, look, I ain't signed up for this shit. It was too much. But had he stayed for that fifth year, I think we would have had a shot to make the playoffs that next year too. But remember that following year, we started off the season 5-2. We started off the season 4-1 and then 5-2 under Jim Zorn before the bottom fell out of that season. So I really, truly believe that if he would have come back, we would have been a good team that next year too. But why it didn't work, why I didn't, go further, is because I don't think Joe trusted himself and the things that he believed in. And I don't necessarily think the game passed him by as much as philosophically. He didn't believe in his scheme being able to stand the test of time. And a lot of the players, including Chris Cooley, have said this over the years. Like, after that first year, they made the playoffs in 05. You know, he was there in 04. And, 05, they made the playoffs. And then remember, 06, that's when they got Al Saunders. And Joe scrapped the entire playbook, brought in Al Saunders, and changed everything. And Chris Cooley was like, excuse me, we didn't need to do that. We had an identity. Joe bringing, the counter trade back and bringing back that, we had an identity. We knew who we were. And when he brought in Al Saunders, it changed everything. We lost our identity. We didn't have an identity anymore. And so I think Joe's biggest flaw was he didn't believe that the things that he did in the past could work in today's NFL, and he never really gave it a chance. And Daniel Snyder was the owner. And Dan empowered Joe to do things Joe never could do the first time around because Joe was just the head coach. Bobby Beathard wasn't letting Joe Gibbs, initiate trades, sign players, do all of that stuff. No, you coach the players, I go out and get you. And remember, there was no free agency. So Joe was like a kid in a candy store. He was doing all kinds of reckless shit. And that was the time when, they were firing up, Redskin 1 and going out and getting whomever Joe pointed, hey, I want Adam Archuleta. They go get him. Joe pointed and said, hey, go trade a second round pick for TJ Duckett. They do it. Go get me Antoine Randall. They go out and do it. And so somebody needed to save Joe from Joe. Joe didn't know no better, man. He was like, shit, I didn't know we could do all of this. He was having fun. Somebody needed to say, all right, Joe, enough. So I think those were the two things, right? Joe didn't believe in his philosophy, didn't think it could stand up to the changes that had gone on in the NFL. And I think he was wrong. But yeah, anyway, I digress. Commando Liberty says Sam Howell by week 10. Nah, I'm not putting that on the squad because that means the season's over. That means we've stunk the last 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks rather coming up. Now I'm not putting that on Sam. I'm not putting that on this roster. I don't even think if we lose the next 3 games, I still don't think they're going to Sam Howell. Not on the road at Philadelphia as his first start. That's dumb. If anything, it'd be the following week at Houston or the following week after that at home against Atlanta in week 12. It'd be something like that. I think his first start will probably come at home. And it'll be a little bit later in the season if we stink. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, failure is a relative term. He still gave us more success than anyone in the Snyder era. And yeah, the Lakers suck. It's crazy that a team with LeBron, AD, and Westbrook is so dysfunctional. It's not surprising because you can't just put a bunch of dudes on a team and expect them to just have chemistry. And then to make matters worse, they did a poor job of surrounding that core with talent. They had a chance to do something really good last year. Instead of getting Westbrook, they had a chance to go out and get Buddy Hield. They should have done that. Because LeBron can dominate the basketball. And yeah, you'd like LeBron to play off the ball, but LeBron can initiate the offense. Like, yeah, you want a point guard, but Buddy Hield, LeBron needs shooters. AD needs shooters, floor spacers. Getting Buddy Hield would have been like cheating for them. And they passed up the opportunity to do that for what? To get Westbrook? You deserve what you got. That was poor management there. Anyway. Success is definitely a relative term. It's what is your definition of success? Everyone has a different definition of success. Our standards are much lower than the standards of that of the Patriots or the Packers. Our standard is, oh, we made it to the playoffs. Joe never won a division title in 2.0. It was just backdoor. We won 5 in a row just to make it to 9-7 and find a way into the playoffs. But it was still a playoff appearance for a team that doesn't make it very often. Remember, also in that Joe 2.0 sequence, that's the last time we won a playoff game. Keep that in mind as well. All back in 2005. So, yeah, you're going back a ways, but I think it was successful. Not as successful as we would have liked it to have been, but it was successful nonetheless. Let's see. Metaphor. Right. You really think even if they vote to remove Dan, he just says, okay, he will fight it in court for years. I do think that there would be a hell of a fight on their hands. He wouldn't go down without a fight. He'll go down kicking and screaming that, and he'll tie them up in litigation. But this is the thing. Dan can't bite the hand that feeds him. Like, he could try to take this thing. He don't have more guns than the NFL, right? Like, it's one thing when Dan is going up against some Joe Schmo peon that, oh man, I got all these guns and all this heavy artillery over here, and you got a couple of revolvers. I'm about to do you, right? That's not what this is. You know, Dan can tie up a little newspaper for coming at him for defamation of character. Dan can go after this person for breaching a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. Yeah, he can go after the small fish aggressively and tie him up in litigation. This is the NFL we talking about here. If he wants to smoke, he can get it. Now, look, he's got enough coin to drag it out. But ultimately, if they vote him out, his ass is done. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take for that to finalize? Because like you said, he's going to go down kicking and screaming. He ain't going down without a fight. Red Wings writes, guess it shows how much chemistry matters. I'm actually pretty intrigued for what the Wizards team is. I'm hyped for Chase's return, but credit to Skanina for getting results anyway. I definitely co-sign that. We wanted to see if Sam Mills was truly the problem. I kept saying these guys are poorly coached. I'm not tripping. I know what my eyes see. And look, I've never been a defensive line coach, and I've never slept at a Holiday Inn. But I'm telling y'all, I was like, yo, this dude, Sam Mills, is a joke. These guys are talented. There's no way. Now they're playing up to their full potential, and I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. The only thing that is shocking is F.A. Obata playing at the level that he's playing at. But I'm not shocked that the Bama Wall is playing up to their full potential. I'm not shocked that Montez Sweat is playing really well. I'm not shocked by that. Now I want to see what happens when Chase Young comes back. But again, I got lowered expectations. I haven't set a high bar for him. We'll see what he does. Commando Liberty. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Taylor going to get our wide receivers killed with his noodle arm. I think that's been overblown. But we've seen him get receivers lit up. That's something that he's definitely done in the past. But I don't know if that's something he'll continue to do or not. I just know he's going to run the offense more effectively and efficiently. That's all I know. I can't speak to anything else. I just know he gives us a better chance to win offensively than that of Carson Wentz. So we can say that. I can at least say that. Kevin the PRF writes, I hope they remove Snyder. They send his notice of removal in an Amazon package. There's this prevailing thought that if Dan sells, Bezos is definitely buying. We don't know what's going to happen, who's going to take over if that were the case. I don't even like having these conversations because I don't think he's going anywhere. So I don't even like entertaining these types of conversations. Joe Rockhead, Jay, writes, Jerry Jones looked like a hostage in that picture with Dan, Jason, and Tanya. Look, Jerry has never been one to do anything that he didn't want to do. If he didn't want to be in a photograph with Dan Snyder, he wouldn't be. I don't think there's any beef there between the two of them. I do think that Dan is petty enough to have had private investigators, dig up some dirt on some of these owners. Because again, if he's going out, as metaphors say, he's not going down without a fight. Whether it's in the courts or in the court of public opinion, whatever the case may be, if I'm going down, I'm taking 5 or 6 of y'all with me. I think he is petty enough to do that. I do think there are owners that are scared shitless. Like, I wonder if I'm one of the dudes he's dug up, because I told you a lot of these owners, a lot of these billionaires have skeletons in their closet. And if you don't want to be outed, you got to keep your mouth shut and you just got to go with the status quo. So I could see Dan, legitimately having some stuff there in his back pocket that's going to allow him to skate, for lack of a better term. Gregory Lightbody says, do you think if the Mary Jo investigation is bad enough, the owners will vote him out? I don't think it. So again, if these investigations, and they're like 50 of them, if they don't turn up any misconduct towards the other owners, meaning withholding money or doing something in a way that it feels malicious and destructive to the growth of the league, if he's not impacting the owners financially, I don't think then it's nothing. They can find nothing in any of these investigations from a moral standpoint that already hasn't been out there. That, like, we're past the moral part of him getting ousted as owner because of something he did that was immoral. We've already passed that. There's been enough here that if they wanted him gone for some of the shit he's done, he would have been gone. They don't care about that. They care about the money. Like, the biggest issue in the ESPN article wasn't the fact that, he had a bad, work environment, that he was, misogynistic, and that, he created an environment where multiple guys have been fired for being creeps, and women felt, unsafe at work, demeaned. We know about the, the post-concert lawsuit he settled with the female on the flight. Like, we know about all that stuff. All that stuff is out in the open. We heard the story about one of the cheerleaders and him offering up the cheerleader to his doctor friend, asking her to go upstairs and show him a good time. And we all that shit is documented. We don't know if all of it's true, but all of that shit is out there. They don't care about any of that stuff. What they talked about in that ESPN article was, we don't think he can secure a brand new facility, a new stadium. Nobody wants to get in bed with this dude. And if he can't get a new stadium, we don't want anything to do with him. That's what they care about, money. Bottom line, can you hold up your 1/32nd of this group of owners? Can you hold up your end of the bargain? Your 1 of 32. Can you hold up your percentage of the bargain? Right now, they feel like the answer is no, which is why they want to get rid of him. But is there enough to do it? I don't think so. I don't think so. Donald Gray, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, excited for the game for a change. I don't know why you would be. I guess Taylor Heineke. I said this on the episode a couple of days ago on CNN that I am so shocked at how many Heineke fans exist. Like, I'm talking about diehard Taylor Heineke fans. I'm shocked. I didn't think there were this many, but there are a lot. I've had people say, "Hey, I'll drive to FedEx from where I live to see Heineke." I'm like, really? Okay. I mean, I guess. I'm not super excited about this game against Green Bay. I was more excited about the game against Tennessee because I expected to win that game. So I was more excited about that opportunity to beat them, turn around, beat the Bears 4 days later, and be back to 500. I think there's only so much excitement you can squeeze out of me for this Packers game because they're dangerous. They're dangerous. They're coming off of an embarrassing loss. I think they're looking at us like a get right game. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what do you think Kyler was fighting with the coach about? I don't know. Honestly, it had something to do with the play call and whether it was the tardiness of it getting in, or maybe he couldn't make up his mind what play he wanted to call. I just know that was their last timeout of the half. They had already burnt a timeout earlier in the game on a similar situation where the play didn't get in fast enough, or I think that's what it had to do with, because the first time they called the timeout, Kyler wanted to change a protection, and he didn't have time to do it. He got up there and he started telling everybody what the protection was going to be, setting everything up. And by the time he was ready to snap the ball, it was 1 second. He realized he wasn't going to get it off. And so he called timeout. Then they had the challenge that failed. And so they were only left with one timeout. And then, boom, you have a similar situation. You're in the red zone again, and you're having issues with communication again. And I think the play got in late, which didn't give them enough time to get, because I remember one time they didn't break the huddle till it was 14 seconds left. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Urgency here, because you want to get to the line of scrimmage with enough time to be able to get set, see what the defense is in, and then make adjustments accordingly. He didn't have enough time to do that. And I think he was bitching about how long it took them to get the play call in. That's my guess. I don't know. I can't be for certain. I can't confirm nor deny that, but that's my guess. Let's see. We left off right here. Red Wings 01 writes, I think this is where we left off. Yeah. It's not just Tez and the Bama wall. You got Hill beating tackles with his get off, JSW putting his physical tools together, Obata looking like the 2020 Ryan Kerrigan replacement. It's all of that. It's Ridgeway coming in, and what a pleasant surprise he's been, right? Like, that's another draft pick. John Ridgeway is another draft pick. Understand that that's like drafting him in the 5th round out of Arkansas. Like, that's beautiful. I don't know if Fields, Castro Fields is going to, turn out to be anything for us. Wild Goose, hey, we were talking all that shit about Wild Goose in his first game. And I've said this many times, cornerbacks in this league, young ones, it's baptism by fire. So they threw him out there the first game against the Eagles. You knew he was going to get christened, and he did. Very first play. They throw the football at him, and he picks up a PI. It was a rough go of it in that first game. And so he was a running joke and everything. Oh, Wild Goose. It was a lot of jokes. Oh, they winning wild on Goose. All of that good stuff. He was really good against the Bears. Really good. And again, I get it. It's the Bears, but the man was second on the team in tackles in that game. He didn't have to be. He just was. Okay. they may be onto something with some of these moves that they've made. The going the young route. We were very disappointed thinking that we were going to win something this year, wanting more veterans. I told you, Ron is conducting himself like a man who is not afraid for his job safety. If you're afraid that you might get fired, you're not going out and getting rookies off of other teams' practice squad. You're going out and you're getting veteran football players that's going to help you win now. Remember, that's what Jay Gruden wanted. His last year in Washington, he was furious when Dan Snyder, made a executive decision and vetoed what the scouting department wanted to do and decided we're taking Dwayne Haskins. Jay Gruden wanted no parts of that because Dwayne Haskins wasn't going to help him win and keep his job. He wanted a veteran. I mean, he wanted a position player to come in and help right away. Well, I mean, one guy wasn't going to, change his fate, but he'd much rather have that than Dwayne Haskins. Ron is conducting himself like, I ain't going nowhere. I got time, so I can go out and get these young boys. Let them develop. Red Wing 01 writes, Ridgeway eating up space. If we resign Payne, then we got all these guys for at least one more year. Get a healthy Mathis too, and we see what kind of destruction they can unleash. That's the exciting part, is that if you're able to somehow lock up this line, and it's going to be tough. Because, again, I just stated this with the Saints. You can't pay everybody. At some point, you got to cut your losses with one or two guys, and they got to get their money elsewhere. And it's frustrating because you hate to see homegrown talent develop here and then explode elsewhere, like Preston Smith, for instance. We did all the legwork with Preston Smith. And then he goes to Green Bay and he's got 13.5 sacks. And you're like, what the F, man? We sat through all these 8.5 sack seasons of you being this close for you to go somewhere else and get 13 and then the next year get 11? Where's the psychological sense in that? But you can't sign everybody. And what I'm fearful of is that the whatever guy doesn't get signed here goes somewhere else and explodes. But we have a chance to have replenished what we lost in Tim Settle and Matt Ioannidis. We have a chance to have replenished that with Ridgeway and Mathis. So feeling good about what they've done to a certain extent. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, shout out to your Grizzlies, Lou. Aldama looks good. Yes, he did. I was talking about him earlier on the show. Santi Aldama played his ass off last night against the Knicks. And it's just an extension of the Summer League. He was dominant in the Summer League. And I didn't know that. And it's the same thing they did with Desmond Bane. Like, they sent Bane there a couple of years ago after his rookie season to get some work as a ball handler. And it translated into him, being more on the ball and more creative, and him upping his point production from like 9 his rookie season to like 18 last year, 17, 18 last year. So doubling his point production, essentially. We did the same thing with Santi Aldama. We sent him to the Summer League with one goal, to get you ready because Jaren Jackson Jr. is out and you're going to play in his position. So we need you to go and dominate the Summer League, and that he did. And now he's playing with a ton of confidence. I love to see it. We saw this at the end of last year, though. We played Phoenix in a game that was meaningless for them, but they still played all their starters and played them for the vast majority of the game. And it's late in the season. We benched a bunch of our guys. We didn't play any of our guys, actually. They played all of their dudes. We didn't play any of ours because it was late in the season. And Santi Aldama went off, slam off on the Suns. And from that point forward, I was like, man, this dude's got something. Vincent Cole, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. who writes, "Are you a Cade or a Jalen Green guy?" I'm a Jalen Green guy. I'm a Jalen Green guy. Let's see. Metaphor, thank you for the comment, who writes, "I feel it needs an anonymous vote. So even if 25 votes, 7 say no, would Dan throw dirt on someone who may have voted to protect him? If not, then they all may as well just vote him out." Um, I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they do it like how they do it in Congress, where they take a vote on the floor and all in favor, aye, and you can actually see the hands out in the crowd. I'd like to think that they, do these things in a way where maybe it is anonymous, but it's 32 of these dudes, right? So maybe they don't. Maybe they want you to know, hey, I don't respect what you're doing, and I'm gonna just let you know. And they want that out in the open amongst themselves to let everybody know where everyone stands. I don't know. That's a good, question to ask. Is the vote anonymous when they do it amongst the owners, or are they taking a vote and you can see hands being raised? Something as simple as that. HHC Lunar says it's every edging week with Kyler. He is really not helping his image right now. And honestly, I don't think he cares at all. Man's already gotten the bag. Don't think he cares one bit about his image publicly. I will say that. I don't think he cares at all. HHC Lunar also writes, "Don't know about Memphis winning the West, though Golden State looks unbeatable, and Denver got Jokic." I don't know if we're gonna win the West. I don't even think that's required to do what we need to do. I don't know what's going to become of Golden State. I don't know what Denver's going to be. What the Clippers are going to be. Don't forget about them. The West is loaded, like it always is, and you're gonna have to find a way to navigate. Don't forget about the Suns and the Mavericks and all that. Like everyone did their best to try to improve, to give themselves a shot. That said, I'm looking to duplicate what we did last year from a record standpoint, and maybe push the envelope and set the franchise record for victories. We tied it last year. I'd love to set it. I think we've got a group of guys that could do that, but it's going to be interesting to see how we hold up without Triple J. And then when Tripp does come back, what does he look like? How long does it take him to get into the swing of things? That's the thing that sucks about him getting injured, is he was starting to really work on different aspects of his game because he was always rehabbing something. Now he's back to rehabbing, so he can't work on his game. So I don't know if we see a step taken. Abel writes, "Taylor Heineke and Holcomb are free agents after the season. Would you keep one or both of them?" Well, Heineke isn't going anywhere. If as long as Ron Rivera and Scott Turner are here, Heineke's got a job. As far as Cole Holcomb is concerned, I had put him in the same boat with Jonathan Allen in terms of, or not Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, in terms of needing to get the deal done if you believed in that guy. This year was about Terry, and I was like, well, you want Terry back. You see the difference with Payne and Sweat and all those, they're first round picks. You got that 5th-year option. With Cole Holcomb and Terry McLaurin, there is no 5th-year option. Those guys are not first round picks. So I put him in the same boat with Terry, like, hey, you might want to get that done this offseason. But I think they wanted to see if Cole could really do it playing the middle linebacker position. I think he's proven that he can. So we'll see. But Taylor's not going anywhere. I think he's solidified himself as the NFL backup quarterback. As long as Scott Turner is in the league, I think Taylor Heineke will have a job. Yin Yang Experience, right? Does Bezos feel like an alternative to Snyder? We need a JKC revival. I don't know. I don't know about Bezos personally. I don't know what his vision for an NFL franchise would be. Like, what's so funny is we just assume that you can't do any worse than Daniel Snyder. And I think it's pretty damn hard to do worse than Daniel Snyder. But there could be worse than Daniel Snyder. I want to find out. Normally you're like, grass isn't always greener on the other side. Well, I don't know. This grass has been, whatever grass exists, it's pretty damn brown, right? At this point, we don't really give a shit. We want to see something else. It could be worse, but we need to find out. But we just don't want to go down this road anymore. Gregory Lightbody writes, even if Dan didn't commit financial improprieties, his track record on sexual assault, if true, should be enough to remove him. But it's not. These owners don't care about it because a lot of these owners got all kinds of stuff in their background. We know about the Cowboys, longtime assistant, over 25 years with the organization, a creep in a locker room with cameras and stuff in the cheerleader locker room, all that stuff. Like, everybody's got something. We talked about Jerry having illegitimate kids and stuff. Everybody's got some shit in their closet, these owners. Robert Kraft at these massage parlors and, all of the stuff he had going that, like, look, all these dudes got something going on, right? This is why they turn a blind eye to that shit. You got to do some vile shit. And we got to know it's you, like Jerry Richardson. You got to do some vile shit for us to say, hey, you got to get the hell out of here, bro. They don't have that on Dan. And so it comes down to, bro, are you costing us money? You've run that organization into the ground. Financially, you are not maximizing one of the biggest media markets that this sport has, that this country has, for that matter. Not just in the NFL. You talk about the DMV area, that media market is massive, probably only second to New York, maybe California, but this is a massive market. And this shit is in the toilet. It's in the toilet. So, yeah. I think they care more about that aspect of his ownership than all the other stuff. Red Wing 01 writes, the West is definitely competitive as always, but for the first time in forever, the East looks like a bloodbath. This season's going to be real interesting. You're not wrong about the East. I think the East got interesting when KD decided to come East. When he decided to come East instead of staying in the West, I thought it got really interesting because that made the Nets a NBA championship team, caliber team. We knew Boston with that young nucleus were going to be title contenders eventually. That window is now officially open after what transpired last season. Now, is the coaching situation going to make a difference? I think it will, but we'll see. The Heat aren't going to go away quietly, but I don't look at the Heat. I don't think they can beat whomever comes out of the West. I just don't think they're good enough. But they're in the mix. Obviously, the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis going to be around if they can stay relatively healthy. I want to see what the Hawks look like now with the DeJounte Murray out there with Trae Young. We saw what DeAndre Hunter did last year in the playoffs. He just got a new deal. The Hawks are interesting. Want to see what they look like if they can stay relatively healthy. I think that, I might be forgetting one or two teams, but the 76ers are cool, but I think they've kind of maxed out what they can do because unless Harden reverts back to, MVP Harden, I just don't know that they can get any more out of that roster than they've already gotten, pretty much. So I don't really think the Sixers are really factoring into anything. Their best chance was with Ben Simmons on their team, being a dominant defender, a facilitator, rebounder, doing all of the dirty work, but still being a superstar type player. That was their best chance, and they blew it. Had no business losing to the Hawks. So East is going to be interesting too. I agree with you. Cavs. Somebody just said the Cavs too. That's right. With Donovan Mitchell coming over, and Darius Garland, they're all of a sudden. That's another one that I want to see what it turns out to look like. Eddie Clayton writes, Taylor Heineke with a first string team could potentially play as well as Kyler. I won't go that far. The talent isn't even remotely close, but the weapons, and again, be nice to have all of them, or at least most of them, at his disposal, but that's not the case. It doesn't look like Jahan's going to be available. It doesn't look like Diami's going to be available. It doesn't look like Logan Thomas is going to be available, but this is why you have depth at receiver. This is why you have depth at tight end. We should still be able to manage and put good football players out on the field that gives us a chance. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Gregory Lightbody writes, no doubt that Snyder has ran this team into the ground, and I don't think the owners would want to help him pay for a new stadium knowing how bad Washington is. They don't. They want no parts of that. And they've already helped him out enough buying out the minority shareholders. They gave him a loan that exceeded the amount that the league was supposed to be allowed to give him. They gave him a waiver to get the rest of the money. Like, they're sick of bailing this dude out. Sports Talker 69. Thoughts on Emi Udoka? I never, all caps, never agree with Stephen A. Smith. I wholeheartedly 110% agree with Stephen A. Smith on Emi Udoka. This was supposed to be an HR situation. This should not have come out to light in a public setting. I think they had their reasons as to why they did it. I don't like them, but this was bullshit. Period. End of discussion. They put that woman out there on Front Street. They put him out there unnecessarily. And for what? These types of issues happen all the time in organizations, and we don't hold press conferences to put everybody's business out on Front Street. But anyway, I digress. All right, that's it. Appreciate y'all coming in, chopping it up with me. We got so far off of the topic of the game tonight. It's not even funny, but I think that's just y'all clamoring for a podcast because y'all asked a lot of podcast type questions tonight, and there hasn't been one this week. It's been a crazy week, clearly. But there was a football game tonight, and the Arizona Cardinals were the winner of that football game, 42-34, and they are now one game away from climbing back to 500. They're a half game behind everyone in the division. Every single team in that division is 3-3. Sans for the Arizona Cardinals, who are now 3-4. So they are right there in the mix. For as bad as they've played at times this season, Arizona Cardinals are a half game out of first place. So They feel really good about getting the win, but more importantly, they got DeAndre Hopkins back. He makes such a big difference. Over 100 yards tonight on 10 catches. It just really, to me, fortifies this offense, puts everybody in their proper slots, gives Kyler Murray an outlet. When it's 3rd and 4, he no longer has to wonder, where am I going with this football? It's going to go to 10, right? So he's got his safety blanket back, his security net, or security blanket and safety net. I think I mixed the two up. He's got it back, and it showed tonight. Nice, strong performance from Eno Benjamin, filling in for a couple of guys out, and Kerwin Williams and James Conner. 92 yards on 12 carries. Eno Benjamin was outstanding, not just as a rusher, too. He was really good in the pass game as a receiver, too. So I thought the Cardinals did it on offense. They did it on defense. They did what they needed to do to win this football game. And for the Saints, 2-5, and they don't look alive right now. A lot of questions, not a ton of answers. They got a lot of guys banged up. You get some of those guys healthy, and maybe, just maybe, I've talked about the NFC. It's still open for business, but the deeper you dig your hole, the harder it is to climb out of it. Now you're 3 games under 500 at 2-5. It's getting harder and harder. This is the time of the year where we start talking about it's getting late early for some teams. Saints are now among them as they sit at 2-5. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted you, whether you were watching basketball or watching something else. I appreciate you chopping it up with the kid, though. And I look forward to chopping it up with y'all tomorrow. Hopefully, I'm able to pump out a podcast tomorrow. If not, I'll see you next week. You'll get your Washington video, and I'll be around over the weekend for the overtime and for the Washington post-game show, all that good jazz. But again, until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Y'all know what it is. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, God bless and good night.
Louie T.